Madara vs Jigen. Who would win? The great villain who was behind all of Akatsuki's plans, Madara, or the great villain who led Kara? Which of the two is the most powerful? Let's see now. It's time to put the two greatest villains from the two generations of the Naruto and Boruto universe against each other to compare who has more power. I know Boruto hasn't ended yet, but I think it's difficult for a villain of Jigen's caliber to emerge. I'm not just talking about the monstrous power this guy had, but also a series of other factors like his polite demeanor, charisma, and imposing presence. All of these make Jigen one heck of a tough villain. But the same thing I can say about Madara. A huge charismatic villain, incredibly imposing, who left everyone breathless when he entered the battlefield. Even though he wasn't Naruto's final villain, Madara was undoubtedly the greatest villain in the anime. But it's time to put these bad boys to fight each other. Who do you think wins? Your like? Your like will always win, even if it's not involved. Look, this is a very difficult fight to decide because we never got to see the maximum of these two characters. Madara reached the peak of power, became the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, awakened the Rinne Sharingan, had two Rinnegan. But even with all that, he couldn't beat the power of the plot, which needed to pull the rug out from under him to bring Kaguya back. On the other hand, Jigen, or rather Ishiki, didn't have much chance to show his full power. He spent a good part of the time limited by his vessel, and when he finally managed to revive, he did so with a short lifespan. And the plot gave Naruto a power specifically tailored to defeat him. Seriously, Ishiki had the disadvantage of having a short lifespan, and the plot goes ahead and gives Naruto a power that shortens his lifespan. If that's not convenient, I don't know what is. But anyway, these two powerhouses were unjustly treated. We can even make a comparison on a power scale. That is, we can take the guys they both faced and weigh them to see who fought the toughest opponent. In this case, it's even easier to compare, since both Madara and Ishiki fought Naruto and Sasuke together. And right there, we already see the first big difference. While Madara struggled a bit with the dynamic duo, Ishiki simply wiped the floor with both of them, twice. So just from that, we can tell that Ishiki is on a much higher level. But it's not that simple. Hold on, let's not panic. The scale isn't that easy to make either. There's a colossal difference between Madara's fight against the boys and Jigen's fight. When Madara fought Naruto and Sasuke, the duo had just received a pack full of upgrades. And within that pack came a very important upgrade, Hagoromo's chakra. Both Naruto and Sasuke received a bunch of Hagoromo's chakra, and my friend, you can be sure that's no small thing. If the guy's chakra has the power to cheat death and continue living even after millennia of his death, you can be sure that this chakra is no weakling. And the duo received this chakra as a gift. That alone put them on an absurd level of power. But they ended up using all that chakra fighting Madara, Kaguya, and even each other. When they fought Ishiki, they used a good portion of the upgrades they got from the pack Hagoromo gave them in the past, used Rinnegan, Six-Path Sage Mode, and whatnot. But they no longer had Hagoromo's chakra, which surely made a huge difference for them there at the end of the war. That's why we can't say that Jigen would easily defeat Madara just because he defeated Naruto and Sasuke. Madara fought them at a time when they had more upgrades than when they fought Jigen. Sasuke even still had both arms, which makes a big difference for him nowadays. Besides, Madara didn't even lose to the duo. He was doing fine against both of them together. So it's not that easy to make a decision, you see. That's why we'll have to compare their powers, point by point. Jigen is ridiculously strong. For sure he lifts more weight on the bench press than you. When little Naruto was in a frank exchange of blows with Jigen, he already shed some tears saying the guy was too strong. And we have no doubt about that. Just look at his feats and see how he could handle both Naruto's and Sasuke's blows, no problem. We're even more certain of his absurd strength when the guy simply goes through Susanoo with the greatest ease, kicking it. He went through it as if he were breaking through a fake wall. It was too easy for him. And he did this in Jigen's body, which was an imperfect vessel for him. In other words, Jigen did this while being nerfed. When Ishiki revived completely, he simply pretended Naruto was a soccer ball and kicked him to the other side of the village, crossing a bunch of buildings. Since Madara became the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, he hasn't used much brute force and doesn't have almost any feats of brute strength that we can compare to Jigen's. The most we have was him blocking all of Guy's blows in the 7th gate with a very smooth move, and even the Hiradora he managed to deflect easily. And mind you, the Hiradora is a pressurized air shot that when Guy first used it, created a shockwave larger than a huge turtle island. So it's not trivial. And we can't forget that Madara has the Ten Tails chakra, and he can increase his physical attributes almost infinitely using that chakra. But Madara has an ability that Jigen doesn't: regeneration. And Madara has it in abundance. We've seen Madara regenerate after having half of his body destroyed after Guy-sensei's kick. We've seen him regenerating from the waist down after being cut by Sasuke, and we've even seen him regenerating after being torn apart by Naruto's Lava Rasen Shuriken. Ishiki didn't demonstrate any level of regeneration, and that could be a big advantage for Madara, but Ishiki kind of doesn't need regeneration. Only those who can't handle taking the hit on the chest use regeneration. And that's what Ishiki does. He takes a lot on the face. And so far, we haven't seen a wound on this guy. The anime even gave him an upgrade. In the anime, Naruto used Bijudamas against Jigen, and he managed to dodge one and the other I was a bit doubtful about. But either he absorbed it, or he stopped it with his chest. And if he stopped a Bijudama with his chest, then the guy is really absurd. But I think he absorbed it. Madara has a great advantage, but it's not very advantageous against someone like Jigen. Madara's destructive power is infinitely superior. That's partly because Jigen didn't show many destruction techniques, but it's mainly because Madara is simply the fucking Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails and has powers that would certainly devastate the earth. Even before becoming the Jinchuriki, he already had a monstrous destructive power, both because of the Susanoo that rivaled the power of a Biju and because of the meteors he pulled to Earth, which have an absurd destruction potential when they hit the ground. But none of that would scare someone like Ishiki, because this bastard can simply shrink everything. Jigen's special power allows him to shrink anything non-living, whether it's jutsus or objects. If Madara made a huge Bijudama of the Ten Tails, Jigen would shrink it until it was smaller than Madara himself. If Madara pulls a meteor from the skies, either Jigen breaks it with a punch or he shrinks it and pretends it's a volleyball. Even the truth-seeking balls could be shrunk and sent to Ishiki's pocket dimension, in theory. If Ishiki were still in Jigen's body, he still had the option of absorbing the jutsus with karma, but shrinking is already too overpowered. On the other hand, Ishiki didn't show that he has what it takes to finish off someone like Madara. The shrunk stakes Madara probably wouldn't be able to see or feel, since Naruto in Six Paths mode didn't feel them, and Sasuke only saw them thanks to the Sharingan. Madara in this version doesn't have any Sharingan, only 2 Rinnegan. Maybe the Rinne Sharingan could see them, but we don't have confirmation that this eye on his forehead can see. But even without seeing and taking those shrunk stakes head-on, they wouldn't be a big problem for Madara thanks to his absurd regeneration, even greater than Naruto's, who managed to fight being stabbed all the time. You can see that this fight is difficult to decide. Both are very strong, and the advantages one has over the other kind of cancel each other out. Madara has much more destructive power, but it's all useless against Jigen's shrinking. Jigen has more feats of brute strength, but Madara can regenerate from anything without many problems. Madara can't see the shrunk stakes, but he could easily take them in the chest. But in the end, in a fight between these two, I think the winner would be Madara. It wouldn't be an easy victory by any means. Madara would go through the greatest hardship. But Madara had more opportunities to show different techniques than Jigen, who was almost limited to shrinking. But from Madara's arsenal, the technique I think would be most effective would be Limbo. There would be 4 invisible clones, and Jigen wouldn't be able to do anything against them, except take a beating like a punching bag. He could even shrink to escape, but he wouldn't defeat Madara just by running away. Besides, with the Ten Tails chakra, Madara would probably be able to stand up to Ishiki Otsutsuki's absurd strength. Remember, this isn't a death battle. But for now, I think Madara has the best chance of winning. And you? Who do you think has the best chance of winning? Comment.